Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rati Tarasya Prayasya Rati Tarasya Prajasya Bhayayam Tantave Rittihitaha Bhayayam Tantave Rittaha Angira Janayam Asa Brahmavatsa Vinasutan Ratarasya Praitrasya Bhayayam Tantaveritaha Angira Janayam Asa Brahmavachasvina Sutan Ajaya Aprayasya. One who had no sons, Bhayayam, unto his wife, Tantave, for increasing offspring, Atitaha, being requested, Angira, the great sage Angira, Janayam, Asa, caused to take birth, Brahmavatsa Svina, who had Brahminical qualities, Sutan, sons. Translation: Ratitara had no sons, and therefore he requested this great sage Angira to beget a son for him. Because of this request, Angira begot sons in the womb of Ratitara's wife. All these sons were born with Brahminical prowess. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Vedic age, a man sometimes was called upon to beget sons in the womb of a lesser man's wife for the sake of better progeny. In such an instance, the woman is compared to an agricultural field. A person possessing an agricultural field may employ another person to produce food grains from it. But because the grains are produced from the land, they are considered the property of the owner of the land. Similarly, a woman was sometimes allowed to be impregnated by someone other than her husband. But the sons were born of her son, then would become her husband's son. Such sons were called Kshetra Rajata. Because Ratitara had no sons, he took advantage of this method. Om Agyanti Midandasya Granjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manu Vistam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Sva Parantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Uta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sa Sri Rupam Sagajatan Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Vetam Savaduta Paijana Saitam Krishna Chaitana Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Shradita Sivijikam Sa Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpataruvyaschā kripa sindhavevacchā patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So this method of producing children in somebody else's wife is in Western countries actually quite common. Sometimes people don't even know who's the husband. And it's not the Holy Spirit, how they became pregnant. It's by the relative crude or rustic way of procreation in the material world. It's a rather rustic process. It's not there everywhere, like in the heavenly planets. We have the example of the Pandavas, plus Karna actually. They were produced by the glance of different demigods. Karma was produced by Surya, just by looking at her. And in the same way, Arjuna was produced by Indra, and Yudhishthira was produced by Yamaraj, and Bhima was produced by the sun god, and Nakula and Sahadev were produced by the Ashwini Kumar demigods. So this is a more elegant way of producing children, available even in the material world. And the question should be asked, why should we anyway have a father? Because according to Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita, Najayati mriyati vagadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita vanabuya, that the soul is eternal. So where is the question of having a father coming in actually? And so the philosophical answer given in Vedic scriptures, beginning with Brahma Samhita actually, and Bhagavad-Gita, Aham bija pradapita, that when the eternal being enters the material world, it has to have a father. And our fatherhood, our father is in the material world, is in the ultimate issue Krishna, or more precise, Sadashiva. Sadashiva is not Shiva in the material, it's not Rudra, it's Sadashiva. Sadashiva is actually Vishnu Tattva, and in a peculiar way, Advaita Acharya is also Sadashiva. And so when Christians say that God has a long beard, it's not complete, it's a kind of cosmic joke. They got it right in one sense, that yes, Advaita Acharya has a beard. But so the problem is, to be in the material world as an eternal living being, you need to have a father. And so in our scriptures, particularly Brahma Samhita, it is technically explained. Krishna explains it in Bhagavad-Gita very simply, that aham bija pradapita. Sarva Yonishu says that he says that he's the father of all creatures, not just humans, all creatures. Every creature in the material world, because creatures, what does it mean creatures? They take different bodies according to consciousness, but the basic idea is that you are transferred into the material world by the glance, when Sadashiva glances over Ramadev. In fact, it is not even the glance, it is the halo of the glance. It's not even the glance of Vishnu or Sadashiva. It is the halo of that glance that is producing or sending living beings in the material world by the mercy of Sadashiva. And the act of procreation is then celebrated when in the worship of the Shiva Linga. In Indian tradition, it is celebrating the act of procreation, worshipping in the Shiva Linga. So we have a father. The soul in the material world has a father. And that is, as I explained, that's Sadashiva or Krishna, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that Ambija Pradapita is the father of all creatures. And so in this way, the eternal soul is facilitated the experience of a perishable body. Because for the soul, for the eternal soul, a perishable body is atypical. It is not normal. This eternal soul doesn't have a material body, but it has to. It has to take a material body, which is like a space suit. When you go to the moon, people claim they go to the moon, they have a space suit. Otherwise you cannot travel in outer space. And so in the same way, it is a space suit. Now the problem with that space suit is that it is perishable. Like you have a pullover, and how long you wear it, at some time a hole develops, another hole, you stitch it up, but in due course of time, you need a new pullover. Just like I need a new pullover, by the way. A little self-advertisement. And so the soul, the body wears out. Vasamsi Jinani Atoja. Krishna explains is that it takes one, as one takes a new body, giving up the old and useless one. So in the same way, the soul is taking one body after another, because he's in trouble in that sense that he's eternal, but he is taking a material body, but the fact is that body doesn't last for any time. That's a problem. An eternal being in a perishable body. It's a problem. And so therefore, there is a Father. And in the material world, of course, our Father, in a direct sense, or in an indirect sense, is our Father, our earthly Father. And some religions, not just some religions, the major religions in the Western world, Abrahamic religions. There are 3 Abrahamic religions, namely Christianity and Jewish religion, and then there is Muslim, Islam, Christian religion. They're all Abrahamic because they're all based on Abraham. So their idea is that our actual Father is our Father that we are getting in the material world. He's our Father. That's the beginning of the soul. Although we know the soul is eternal, so it is not knowledge, it is, well, how you call it? Anumana, mental speculation. It's mental speculation that we have a beginning. In fact, if you believe in the pre-existence of the soul, according to Catholic Church teaching or Christian teaching, you go to hell. That means Krishna goes to hell, and Lord Chaitanya goes to hell, and Srila Vyasadeva, and everybody who is somebody, they all go to hell according to this idea. It's a human concept. There's no reality to it. It's just made up. And Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita in the 11th chapter that there are 2 kinds of living beings. Some are called perishable and some are called fallible, and some are called infallible. In the material world, everybody is fallible, and in the spiritual world, everybody is infallible. So it doesn't matter how many people get together, like in this particular case, on the Concile of Constantinople in the year of 530, when fallible people voted. It was a vote. They voted on the truth. And the vote they come up with is, yes, our beginning is at the time of conception. That's the beginning of the soul. And if you believe something else, you're going to go down there. This is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous concept. The soul is eternal, eternal. They believe in eternal life. In future, you go to heaven eternally or you go to hell eternally. So the concept of eternity is there. But that eternally has a beginning. And we know by definition there's no question of eternity have beginning. Eternity means no beginning, no end. And in fact, we cannot understand the concept of eternity. Nobody in the material, if you have a material body, you cannot understand the concept of eternity, because the body has a beginning and an end. You're conditioned by this body, you're in the bodily concept of life, and because the body has a beginning of an end, therefore our consciousness is conditioned like this to think in terms of beginning and end, and therefore we cannot understand eternally. It's very simple, actually. And because people are in the material world, in mundane consciousness, therefore they come up with these extraordinary theories that we are born at the time of conception. It is true the soul is taking shelter in the womb of the mother at the time of conception, but it is not that it is created, that the Father is actually the creator. That is not so. You know, the soul is in the material world since time immemorial. Everybody who is sitting in this room, he was foolish enough to come here. World is the purpose of the universe is to rectify. It's a, what is it? A sanatorium, basically speaking. A gigantic contraption that serves as a sanatorium to reclaim people from material existence, to bring them back to Krishna. And the fastest way to learn is, of course, by hearing, by Shabda Brahma. And most people in this world are not able to do that. They cannot hear, have eyes and do not see, ears and do not hear, as it says in the Bible. And so they have to learn by the process of trial and error, the painful process of trial and error. And so in due course of time, let's hope that everybody goes back to Godhead by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and that is possible. I have a practical example of that. That one time I was preaching in Africa. It was in, where was it? Mombasa, Kenya. There was an old man, life member. He came to the temple. Not he, his wife came inside. Sidut Bhajan, he was standing outside waiting that she would come out. Because many times the husbands are not so pious like the women. You see, most women are coming to Krishna consciousness, for example. So then I heard him going around the temple. He changed his mind. He chanted, Hey Narayan, Hey Narayan, Hey Narayan. And it was in the evening. Then he came in the morning without the wife and chanted around the temple, Hey Narayan. There was his mantra, Hey Narayan. And this went on then he came at noon. He came in the morning, at noon, and in the evening, chanting Hey Narayan. Then he didn't come anymore, and we didn't think much about it. And then one day we get a call from the doctor, and he said, Mr. Prithu Das, you have to come. This man, you know him, Hey Narayan, he is dying. So we went to the hospital. We came to the hospital. The doctor said, you're too late. I said, why? Is he passed away? He said, no, he's still here, but his brain stopped working. He's brain dead. I said, how is that possible? He said, look here. He showed me monitor, and the brain wave was flat. He said, there it is. So he said, I said, let's have a kirtan. He said, well, he can't hear you. I said, that may be so, but he can also complain. So let's do it. So we started, we started chanting, and after an hour or so, half an hour, I forgot, and I cannot tell stories that are not true in front of Radhesham, Krishna Balaram, and Lord Gaunitai. Something happened on the screen, some motion was there, and it became bigger and bigger. And the nurse, he was in intensive care. Intensive care means you're strapped, your body is strapped to all kinds of cables and pipes, and the body is supervised from a supervisor's room. There's something like 10 nurses sitting and watching the screens of different patients. So she came storming in, the doctor came storming in. He said, what is going on here? And I said, well, you know, and the man started moving. He said, how did you do that? I said, well, we were just chanting Hare Krishna. Hardly I said that, the man stood up in bed and said, now it is Hare Krishna all the way. And he fell down and was dead. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyadrati antikalevram tam tame county tam tame ivati county sadatat baba bhavitaha. He was gone. And he went back to the spiritual world. Imagine, he was not very pious initially, but simply by chanting Hey Narayan, he had a bright moment. The brightest moment in his life was when he passed away, when he was just about to pass away. He stood up, now it is Hare Krishna all the way, and fell over. So you see how powerful the name is and how Krishna can extract everybody from material existence by the power of the holy name of Krishna. Nam Prabhu Ki Jai. So now we are in the material world, and we, by the mercy of Sadashiva, and although we are eternal, we have a material body, and we are doomed in that sense in material existence. Now the question is, what about the spiritual world? Can one have a father in the spiritual world? And if you look at the different kind of, how do you say, predominant rasas, there is no such a thing. There is, what is it? Shanta rasa is there, neutrality, and then there's Dasya rasa is there, servitorship, and there's, what's the next one? Sakya rasa is there, friendship, and then there is parental. This is old age. It will come to you too, Vatsalya, and then ultimately Madhurya. So, but then how can one have God in the spiritual world as a father? Anybody has an idea how that was? That rasa? Is this doesn't in the prime rasas in the spiritual world? It is not there, but there is actually in Dasya Rasa there's Gaurav Dasya Rasa. And in Gaurav Dasya Rasa you can have Krishna as your father. It is not a seminal relationship. It is not by intercourse. It is by rasa. And who has this relationship? Pradumna, for example, the sons of Krishna in Dwarka. In Dwarka Leela, you have Krishna as your father. And Dwarka is also in the spiritual world. There's one area which is Dwarka Loka. There it is. And even in the Bible, Jesus said, our Father who is in heaven. And he talks about my Father in heaven. And one devotee, his name was Bhaktadas, he asked 1969 the question to Srila Prabhupada, is Jesus in the spirit, does he come from the spiritual world? Or does he come from Brahma Loka, from higher planet? And Prabhupada said very clearly, he said he came from the spiritual world, he came from Vaikuntha. So he is actually in this Gaurav Dasya Rasa, that rasa. It's very explained very precisely by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu. If anybody wants to know the exact verse, it's no problem to me. I can give him in a day, give me your email, I send it to you. It's possible. And so he's in this particular relationship, although he's an eternal being, he's on the platform of, his consciousness is on the platform of Najayati Mriyati Vakadachin. Everybody in the spiritual world is in this consciousness. Still he has Krishna as his father. And so it is amazing that the Lord is able to relish every relationship there is, even to have sons. It's not in Vatsalya Rasa, he is a son. He's a son of Nanda Maharaj. But he can also be the father. It's not an inverted Vatsalya Rasa. It's not inverted Vatsalya Rasa like some people think. There is a specific relationship that you can have Krishna as your father in the spiritual world, and that is called Gaurav Dasya Rasa, according to Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's that relationship. So then in the material world, of course, people are speculating. And they come forward with all kinds of speculative concepts as far as religion is concerned. And speculation is always based on a fallible mind. Like we heard this verse, in the material world everybody is fallible. And so there is a verse by Krishnadas Kaviraj in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me think. Where is this verse? Here. Come on, baby. Light my fire. So, this is one of my favorite verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Chaitanya Prabhum Vande Balo Piyat Anugrahat Taran Nana Mata Graha Vyaptam Siddhanta Sagaram. You know that verse? And it says, I offer my obeisance to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusions about the absolute truth. There's an ocean of conclusions, mundane conclusions. God is this, God is that, God's name is this, God's name is that. All kinds of names, like the most exotic name among the Red Indians, Sioux Indians. They call God Wanki Tanki. Wanki Tanki also, that is the idea of God. I'm sure Krishna is getting a kick out of it when he's worshipped as Wanki Tanki. So people have so many ideas as an ocean of conceptions of, in the material world, of religion. Of course, we know, what is it, Dharman tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, that religion is made by God and by nobody else. And it comes through Tene, Brahma, Daya, Adikavaya, Muanti, Asura. It comes through disciplic succession. And when there's no disciplic succession, Sakalaniya Mata, Yogo, Nashta, Parantata, finished, there is no knowledge. It's all mental speculation. And because one mind has this idea about Jesus, and another one has that idea about Jesus, there are so many Jesuses and so many religions, Christians. There are about 4,000 I believe, 4,000 different Christian sects who don't agree with each other. Everybody has his own Jesus, because that Jesus is Vaishnavya Kriya Mudra. It is our philosophy even that neither you cannot understand Krishna by mental speculation, only by undivided devotion can I be understood as I am, but even Vaishnavya Kriya Mudra, even a pure transcendentalist, Saktya Avatar cannot be understood by mental speculation. So people have all kinds of concepts, and when you present them a real concept, a real Krishna, they cannot accept. I remember one time I was on Sankirtan, it was in Ireland, in Galway, and there were some Christians who were harassing me. And Ireland is a very Christian country. And so in the argument I said, you don't even know who God looks like. Which is true, they have their concept of God which is irrelevant, really. And they challenged me and said, you do, but you do. I said, yes, here it is. So I opened the Bhagavatam, and it happened to be the horse incarnation of Krishna, Lord Hayagriva. And I said, that is God. And I'm sure they never come back to their Ren. Everything they thought Krishna conscious about was confirmed. That the people, the Hare Krishna devotees, worship a horse. We don't worship a horse. Krishna can take Advaita Machuti Manadim Ananta Rupam. He has unlimited forms. Unlimited, Ananta Rupam. So this is one of it. Is the Lord takes this form of a boar out of particular reasons. It's a Leela avatar of Krishna. So they were in a state of shock when I showed them the bona fide picture of the Supreme Lord in the form of a horse. And, but it is not my idea. They may think it is mental concoction, but it is not. It is Shastra. In the 10 avatars, Dasa avatars, Lord is praised. Vakeshavadrita, Matsya Sarira. No, it's not Matsya, it's Kurma. Keshavadrita Kurma Sarira. No, not Keshavadrita. Meena Sarira. Meena Sarira. Keshavadrita Meena Sarira. That's the Lord. So we have to take knowledge not from minds, not from the mind. Neither pratyaksha, direct perception, will help us. Nor does, of course I have to say something more to pratyaksha. There are two types of pratyaksha. So the pratyaksha, direct perception in the material world, doesn't help us to appreciate what is truth. According to pratyaksha, the sun is very small now, this big, red in the morning, white at noon, red in the evening, pleasant in the morning, pleasant in the evening maybe, and terrible at noon. That's all you know. And it warms the body by sense perception. You don't understand. Now by research, which is also speculation, you come to the conclusion this and that, the sun is so big, and there are so many different researches done on the sun and even on the universe. In fact, the latest cutting edge understanding of one of the most famous astrophysics in the world, professor of Harvard University. His conclusion is that actually this universe doesn't exist. By mathematical conclusion, he said it's impossible, it doesn't exist. So I remember one time there was a Buddhist and he argued with me that everything exists only because you think it is existing. So I said, well, here's a wall. You know, he said, you see, this is solid. He said, it is solid because you believe it is solid. He said, all right, you think, you don't believe it is solid? He said, no. I said, all right. I took his head and hit it into the wall. And he said, how? He said, come on. According to your philosophy, it doesn't exist. Then I asked him, do you know, this is a little excursion now, into Buddhist philosophy. There's a famous shloka where they say you have to hear the one hand clapping, the sound of one hand clapping. I said, what is that? He said, I've not experienced it. He said, I have experienced it. I told him, I can give you the experience, and I slapped him. Said, did you hear this is a sound of one hand clapping? So people come to all kinds of conclusions, and this is the latest epitome. And it may be so, even mathematically, it may well be that the universe doesn't exist. But it doesn't exist because of, or not exist because of mathematics. It exists because of Krishna's mercy. And that they're not able to capture. You cannot understand. It's achintya. Krishna's power is achintya. And therefore, even if somebody is impossible, it does exist because Krishna is unlimitedly powerful. Unlimitedly powerful. That's why the universe exists, by Krishna's mercy. And people are researching the origin of the universe. Now, he said we should build, you know, this collider, this particle collider in Switzerland, 22 kilometers diameter, $1 trillion it costs. He said we should make a huge one that covers the whole United States, a collider. Then we will find out. But they will never find out. Because the origin of the universe is as simple as that. You go into a temple, you buy Bhagavad-Gita for 50 rupees, 100 rupees, you read Aham Savasya Prabhavo Matasavam Pavartati Iti Matva Bhajanti Mam Buddha Bhava Samamvitaha. I'm the source of everything, the whole creation rests upon me. If you want to understand the universe, it comes from the pores of Mahavishnu. But because people have no piety, they live in denial of the transcendental reality. They live in denial of themselves even, because they're eternal, but they're living in denial of themselves. And in this way they end up with an unlimited, how do you say, identity problem. They're an identity problem. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they're coming from, they don't know where they're going to, they don't know where they are right now. They go from ignorance to ignorance, basically speaking. Because their knowledge is based either on pratyaksha or anumana, mental speculation. And we know Shabda Brahma, without Shabda Brahma you cannot understand. We can understand so many things about Krishna if we hear Shabda Brahma. And ultimately we come again to pratyaksha. There's a higher direct perception on the transcendental platform. Krishna says it in Bhagavad-Gita, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitam Idamutaman, the king of knowledge, Raja Vidyam Raja Guyam, the greatest secret, Pavitam is pure, Itam Utamam, the highest purity, Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam. So there is higher pratyaksha on the transcendental platform when Krishna reveals himself. After anatta nivritti. After anatta nivritti, then comes nishta, and then comes ruchi, and then gradually Krishna, there is pratyaksha there on the transcendental level. This pratyaksha in the material world is perverted pratyaksha. It's not pure pratyaksha. And so, taking to Vedic scriptures, we can understand the whole thing, how we are in the material world, who is our father, what is our beginning, and we can understand ultimately we have no father. And people, I mean, it's interesting, since I talked a little bit with Christianity, what is a Christian concept then? How are we sons of God? Are we sons of God? It says in the Lord, our Father. He said, no, we are not. We are sons of our earthly father. But we can become adopted by God. We are stepsons. We can become stepsons of Krishna by the mercy of Jesus. It is such a, I mean, people try everything. Now you're not even sons of God. You're not even stepsons. You have to, unless you take to Jesus, you cannot become a stepson of God. You see, this is the philosophy. And on the other side, Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. That's the Christian theology. We know in the spiritual world, nobody is begotten. In fact, we are begotten. In the spiritual world, nobody is begotten, and we are begotten in the material world. First of all, in the first original way, by Sadashiva, and then ultimately in the rustic way we all know and call sex life, and people unite in sexual unity, and there is conception there. So we have a very precise understanding when we talk about the soul. And that is not in Western religiosity. They do not have a defined concept of soul, and therefore they do not suffer, even they don't understand why the innocent suffer. How do you explain this? My brother died of cancer. He was 7 years old. He suffered like a dog. His skull was opened 4 times. Another piece was taken out. It took 4 years for him to die. My mother never recovered. Any mother that has children can imagine what happens if your son dies like that. 4 years of dying. And I asked the priest, I was at that time 12 years old, I said, Father, where's God here? How is it possible? He said, well, I said, what has he done? I said, that he has to suffer like this. He says, oh, he has not done anything. He said, then why is he suffering? It says in the Bible, as you sow, you reap. So what has he sown? He was just a child, and he has to suffer like that. What is your answer? Answer my question. And he said, I don't know. And I told him, I said, Father, you just made me an atheist. I became an atheist. And many people become atheists in the situation of suffering and evil in this world. They become atheists. Because how can this be true? How can there be a loving, a benign, an impartial God? God is supposed to be impartial. As he says in Bhagavad-Gita, Namo ham sarva bhuteshu, Namo dveshto siddha priya. He's equal, he's not partial, he's equal to everyone. How can this be? Somebody has everything here, somebody has nothing, somebody is suffering like a dog, and somebody is never to church or to the temple and he enjoys. How is it possible? You cannot understand this, you cannot answer this question unless you understand karma deva netrina, that based on his previous life, Krishna says, why should we listen to some ignorant priest? Krishna says that I'm suffering my karma out of my past life. And in this way you can understand there is divine justice, and that fate is neither accidental nor unfair. Neither accidental nor unfair. It is completely fair. But you can ask any Muslim, any Christian, any Jewish person, why is there so much suffering in this world? There's no answer. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. You have to understand the concept of soul. You have to understand that why are we here? Who are we? Why we are here? And why we are suffering? Why there's so much suffering in this world? In the presence of God. Well, everybody is drinking his own soup. You give Krishna the ingredients in your previous life, the sabji and the asafatida, and he's a cook. But you have to eat it. That's the simple truth of it. So, since we're talking about fatherhood, I became, in this verse, I became inspired to talk about this subject from a spiritual point of view. What does it mean to have a father? You can have a father, your earthly father, and you had so many fathers. So he's not that significant. And then you have a father coming into the material world in the first place. That is Krishna himself. His expansion is Sadashiva. Sadashiva is an expansion of Krishna. Sadashiva is not a Jiva, he's Vishnu Tattva. He's not Jiva Tattva, that's Shiva. He's Vishnu Tattva. And from him expansion of Rudra comes. So, in the same way, then in the spiritual world, nobody has a father, unless you can have Krishna as a father in terms of rasa, not in terms of a seminal relationship. And so that is happening, sons of Krishna and Dwarka, and in Christian tradition. So I thank you so much. We're coming to the end of the lecture. If you have any questions, you're welcome. Yes.
There are many beliefs of many religions. How much should we engage in discussing with Christians and Buddhists and different people? I know in the airport, we found most of the time they would waste your time.
No, you don't have to.
No, I'm just asking, how much should we engage trying to convince people
You can't.
who are strong believers of other religions?
You can't. You can speak up to the end of Kali Yuga. There's no question. I mean, it's like preaching to a potato. My dear potato, you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. Good luck. So people are mentally hijacked, really. They're mentally imprisoned in this concept, and you can't get it out.
They feel the same about us.
Huh?
They feel the same about us.
I know.
We're mentally hijacked, and we're actually believing that a horse-headed person is God.
I know, but he who laughs the last laughs the best. You see? Right? Because at the time of death, everybody, even an atheist, will realize that he is not the body. It's a fact. Every Christian will realize, I made a mistake, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. The body's lying there, people are crying, but I'm still there. What's going on here? I thought I was a body. You see?
We're very fortunate to have an in-depth philosophy that explains everything A to Z.
And first of all, and second of all, what to do with people like that. And Krishna says, let the mind not disrupt the mind of the ignorant. There's a verse, gives us clear instruction. So we have to engage people. You give them some prasadam. I remember, true story, I was sitting in a train in Cork, on the way to Cork, from Dublin to Cork, and an Irishman came into the compartment. And I was alone with him, and I was chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He said, what are you doing there? I said, I chant the name of God. He said, Krishna? He said, yes. He said, son, it will not help you unless you turn to Jesus and drink the precious blood of Jesus, you cannot be saved. And I understood, you know, he was set for the rest of this body. And all the arguments in the world, remember the example of the potato, will not help. He's a potato head. So then Krishna gave me the idea, super soul. And I said to him, actually, I don't believe that you follow Jesus. He said, why not? He said, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Is that true or not? He said, yes. He said, you follow that? He said, yes. He said, all right, let me ask you a question. How much money you have in your pocket? He said, how does that have to do with our discussion? He said, I have a question, answer my question, how much money you have in your pocket? He opened up, he said, 100 pounds. I said, love your neighbor as yourself means 50-50. Give me 50. And he said, no, hold on a minute. I said, love your neighbor as yourself. 50 for you, 50 for me. That's what Jesus said. Apply your philosophy, not just talk about it. Put your money where your mouth is. And he went, he swallowed. And he said, all right, you may be right. And he gave me 50. And I embraced him. I said, you're really a follower of Jesus of Nazareth. So, when you meet a Christian, celebrate. This is a great opportunity. Take some money, give him some prasadam, give him chant for him, and if you can take some Lakshmi, give it to Krishna. That's the best thing that ever happened to him in his whole life.
I have one comment. When Hayagriva Prabhu was reading,
Who? Hayagriva.
He was saying that the spirit and matter exist side by side since beginning. And Aristotle said, but the spirit does not exist without the matter. Prabhupada said that's not Vaishnavism. But then he explained, but Plato says spirit and matter exist. No, spirit is visible with the matter, but spirit can exist without the matter. Prabhupada said that's Vaishnavism. So some idea of Vaishnavism does exist, because according to the Dharma, the Catholic accepted that Aristotle one, not the Plato's one.
Yeah, well, so
some idea of soul, spirit, thinking within feeling, that concept is there, maybe not discussed.
It's like playing Russian roulette. Most of the time there's no bullet, but one time you get it right and you're dead. You see, so sometimes they may get close to it, something, you know. But it is not the full thing, it is not the full Siddhanta. You know, if you really ask him to explain in detail, you have to take Srimad, you have to, from Guru, Shastra, Sadhu, you have to take. That's the only way who know very clearly what is what. You know, so Plato says something, Socrates says another thing. One scientist said the universe is, it doesn't exist. Somebody else says at the origin of the universe is a Big Bang. And now they're doubting the Big Bang. We know there's not a Big Bang, they simply emanate from the pores of Vishnu. Yes. That's the truth of it. You know, and you cannot understand it. He may be right by mathematical conclusion there shouldn't be a universe. According to mathematics, he may be, because it's a material conclusion. But we know that in the ultimate issue that this cosmos exists only by Krishna's mercy. You cannot even scratch your head without Krishna's mercy. You can't. There's no way, you're not the body. So how will you scratch your head if you're not the body? How do you know that there's an itch in the first place? I explained this recently in the Bhakta class. How do you know how? I'm not the body, but I've just felt an itch here. Why? I'm not the body. Because as a sun is penetrating the universe with light, the body is penetrated by the soul with consciousness. So I may not be the body, but I'm conscious of the body. That's the first step to understand. But then the next step is, how do you get the hand from here to here? You're not the body. Man proposes, the answer is man proposes, God disposes. Srila Prabhupada explains that all activities are initiated by the super soul. Every single activity is initiated by the super soul. The super soul understands that Prithu Das, who is not the body, but who feels the itch because he's conscious of the body, wants to scratch this itch because it is uncomfortable. So then the action is initiated by the super soul. Krishna goes to the telephone. Hello, this is Krishna. Can you please, you demigods that are responsible for his motions, can you please lift his hand? Shri Bhagavan Ki Jai, of course we do. And so the hand. This is how that works. In every moment, you know, it's amazing how the super soul is involved at every second. You cannot lift your hand, you cannot scratch yourself, you cannot do nothing without God. But Christians think that God is in heaven, far away. Muslims think God is in heaven, far away. He's here. Even in the atom. Nothing exists without Krishna. He is Otram, what is it? Otram and Protam. Otam and Protam. The weave and the weft. If you have a cloth, there's weave and weft. You know, two threads, two directions of thread that form a cloth. If you pull the Otam and the Protam out, you have nothing. Nothing exists in this world if you pull Krishna out. It exists because of Krishna's mercy. It's very simple, actually. And so now you learn not only how we can have Krishna as a father in the spiritual world, you even know now how to scratch your head according to the Siddhantic conclusion, how that works. And every second, you lift your hand, you cannot do it without Krishna. Prabhupada said, when he left his body, the last sentence, I was right there. He said, everything moving and non-moving, he was already, the body was already struggling. I heard. Mucus was gathering. Good Guru is said in Shastra. It was there, all of a sudden the hand went up, completely peaceful. Even now my hand is not as clear of motion in his hand, completely clear. And he said, took about 5 minutes. Everything moving and non-moving, there's nothing but Krishna. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. It means in the most crucial moment of his life, he gave an exhibit to us of his consciousness. One who is yomam pashyati savatra samam chamai pashyati tasyana pranashya miti, and so on. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. I'm never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. He was in this consciousness. We heard the other day, Maharaj Ambarishi was in this consciousness. that he was not the body. Like you have this amazing verse in Bhagavad-Gita. Oops, which one? In Bhagavad-Gita, there's this verse it's in the 5th chapter. Just to give you an idea. In the 5th chapter there's a verse, Bhagavad-Gita, 5th chapter, 6 to 8 I think, 8 to 9. Naiva kinchit karomiti. A person in divine consciousness, this is a person who's in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving or opening his, closing his eyes, he knows that only the senses are engaged with the objects, and he's aloof of them, and Krishna is Rishikesha. He's a controller of the senses. This verse is amazing. We cannot imagine this stage. We have to go there. You know, that you're so separate from the body. Like a coconut when dry is separated from the shell.
But then in 18th chapter, Krishna says, if you don't consider 5 factors, it's not intelligent.
Right.
So we have to consider 5 factors.
Yeah, but
we are, how would I say, contingent doer.
We are one factor we are, but we are not the only factor.
That's
You're not the only, we are, like aham, what is this verse in Bhagavad Gita? That Prakriti kriya manani gunai kamana savasha ahankara vimudhatma. Somebody thinks he's a doer, the only doer you may say, right? More subtly, the doer, he's a fool. You know, very clearly. And he says that nature is a cause of all causes and effects, but the soul is suffering the results. How is that possible if we are not the doer? Well, we desire this particular activity, and therefore then material nature acts under Krishna's control to facilitate. Like we are not the taxi, we are not the driver, we are the passenger. But we tell the passenger, the driver, go here, go there, and he immediately complies. So we have to suffer. If he brings us, he say, go to hell. He brings us to hell. We can't complain because this is our desire. Krishna immediately at every second translates our desires into action. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premananda Haribo.